Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 24, Multiculturalism. And we start with topic the idea of differentiated citizenship. Liberalism addressed the issue of social discrimination by disregarding ascribed identity and extending the same rights to all persons as citizens. Multiculturalism is in sharp contrast to this, argues that identical rights for all are inadequate for minimizing cultural based discrimination. What we require are special rights for identified minorities. The idea that citizens be differentiated on the basis of their cultural identity and that different communities may receive different rights as citizens of the polity is one of the defining features of multiculturalism, and it is expressed through the concept of differentiated citizenship. The concept of differentiated citizenship rejects the liberal ideas of universal citizenship. Multiculturalism maintains that universal citizenship assumes that all persons are alike. This assumption of homogeneity eclipses group differences. It calls upon the individual to leave behind their particular identities and see themselves only as citizens of the polity. In the society where some groups are privileged and others are marginalized, this implies that the latter forsake their identity and take on the outlook and perspective of the dominant group, that is, the majority community. At the same time, the notion of universal citizenship allows the privileged group to ignore their group specificity by enabling the norms and points of view of the privileged minority to appear neutral and universal. This ideal perpetuates cultural imperialism. The idea of a group differentiated citizenship and rights is advocated to halt this process of assimilation by giving minority cultural communities rights that would enable them to protect their cultural against the pressures of homogenization that comes from the state and society. It rests on the belief that society comprises of many different cultural communities, but the state invariably privileges and endorses the culture of one community, which is designated as the majority. Since this marginalizes and disadvantages other cultural communities, special rights may be extended to them. A distinction may therefore be made between citizens on the basis of cultural identity, and this is justified for ensuring equal treatment for all. Now, the next point is different kinds of special rights. Within the framework of differentiated citizenship, multiculturalism sanctions three kinds of special rights for minority communities. First, cultural rights; second, self government rights; and the third, special representation rights. Beginning with the understanding that the state represents the culture of the majority community, multiculturalists argue that the minority communities require special rights so that they have access to their culture in the public domain. In Western democracies, special cultural rights have been demanded in the form of exemptions from the existing laws, assistance for minority cultures, institutions, and recognition for minority cultural practices. To take a few examples, the Sikh in Canada have demanded and received exemptions from the law that prescribes helmet wearing for motorcycle riders. Women from the Asian communities have been granted exemptions from wearing a dress while serving as nurses in hospitals. In both cases, the arguments made by minority was that the prescribed code did not take note of their culture of minority communities, and exemptions were given so that members of these cultural communities may live in accordance with their accepted cultural practices. In addition to seeking exemption, minority communities have also sought assistance by way of financial and other infrastructural support so that their culture can be represented in the public arena. Here, support has usually taken the form of assistance to establish museums, run minority educational institutions, and hold public festivals. At times, minority communities have also demanded recognition for their distinct cultural practices. In India, for instance, religious communities wanted and were given recognition for their family law. So, today individuals are governed by the personal law of their community. The most significant aspect of claims for recognition are that communities through them seek endorsement of traditional cultural practices and institutional structures. Most often, the acceptance of these claims brings into effect plural structures of jurisdiction and governance. Sometimes traditional norms receive exclusive jurisdiction over the members. On the other occasions, traditional norms are placed alongside the laws formulated by the state. Whatever be the specific form of arrangement, these cultural rights bestowed upon the community and its practices a legal status, thereby making it a legitimate actor in the public domain. The second kind of special right justified within multiculturalism is that of self government. Like recognition rights, these two take the form of dual structure of jurisdiction. The only significant difference being that self-government rights are linked to territorial claims. Communities that are concentrated in a given region and have lived there for several generations are supposed to receive this right. Self-government rights are thus defended only for a specific sort of minority, namely communities that are a distinct nation with historically supported claims over that territory and a desire to protect their cultural identity. The purpose of self-government rights is to give communities a certain degree of political autonomy to govern themselves in a way that they can protect and promote their distinct cultural identity in a given region. The third category of minority rights is special representation rights. The assumption behind claims for these rights is that minority communities must have an opportunity to participate in political process, set agendas, and voice their specific point of view. As Arish Marion Young argues, people in different groups often know about somewhat different institutions, events, practices, and social relations, and often have different perceptions of the same institutions, relations, and events. For this reason, members of some groups are sometimes in a better position than others to understand and anticipate the probable consequences of implementing particular social policies. Consequently, their participation is bound to enrich public discourse while simultaneously bringing groups that are otherwise marginalized into the mainstream. It is further argued that the deliberate inclusion of various groups, particularly oppressed minorities, can be a powerful tool for defining public norms and creating deliberative conscience. Special representation is thus seen as a way of including and empowering marginalized groups so that they have a sense of participating and contributing to the policy outcome. At the same time, it is expected to enrich policy making by bringing in the experiences and perspective of diverse groups in society. It is this double advantage that justifies claims for special representation for communities. In India, special representation was granted to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes by the constitution, and this gesture was motivated by the need to include population that had hitherto been excluded from the public and political domain. Next point is differentiating between minorities. So far, we have only outlined the three different kinds of special rights that are supported within multiculturalism for minority communities within the nation state. The question that needs to be addressed now is, should all minorities receive each of these rights? Should all minorities be given the same special rights? Within multiculturalism at the general level, special rights are defended for minorities, but rarely is it said that all three kinds of rights must be given to all minorities within the state. Most theorists agree that these rights are intended only for the minorities that have been historically oppressed. Also, which set of rights should be granted to oppressed minorities has to be determined by looking at the specifics of the case. Different contexts demand different remedies, and which would be the appropriate course in a given situation will depend upon the kind of minority it is, its experience of discrimination, and the nature of the state. So, we cannot have a general theory of minority rights. Will Kamaika in his writing, however, differentiates nation minorities and immigrant communities who are also minorities. He maintains that self government rights may only be given to communities who see themselves as nations with a distinct societal culture and have historical claims over a given territory. Immigrants come to a country with the clear understanding that they will have to live by the norms of that country. So they cannot claim rights to protect and promote their culture. The issue of whether immigrants can ask for public recognition for their culture and practices is a subject on which there are considerable differences within the multicultural camp. Suffice here to say that special rights are not supported unconditionally for all communities. Not all communities are expected to given exactly the same rights as other minorities. Here we want to wind up this lecture. Thank you so much for your attention.